Bless you, everybody. It's good to be on with all of you one more time, even if it is through the internet. Like I always tell you guys, I can't wait to be back with you guys again in person. But while we're doing this, let's enjoy one more Sunday. Let's enjoy another good lesson. So this one says following a good example. So this is lesson 24, and it says following a good example. All right, and the Bible, the book that it's from is Second Timothy chapter 3, verse 10 through 17. And just for a little bit of background, if I asked you who wrote it, you guys knocked this stuff out of the park. So you guys would tell me it's Paul, and Paul is writing to Timothy. And Timothy was one of the pastors. So Timothy had learned from Paul, and Paul had left him as a pastor to one of the churches, right? So here Paul is telling him, and we can kind of make it out that Paul is telling him, basically follow my example and have other people follow your example. All right, so let's check it out. It says the main idea, it says to imitate a good example develops character and perpetuates or continues on Christian values. Okay, so to imitate a good example develops character and perpetuates Christian values. And as I was reading this, I was thinking, Louis, wouldn't you want to teach about being a good leader? So not necessarily being a good follower, but being a good leader. And I'll tell you guys what I've always known and what is so true and what is so important. Because yes, I think a couple of lessons ago, so not last week, because Liani's talked to you guys last week, but the week before that, I was telling you guys that you guys are all leaders. It doesn't matter what sector. Some of us are leaders in bigger sectors. Some of us are leaders in smaller sectors, but we are all leaders. All of you guys are leaders. But here's the important piece. In order to be a good leader, you have to have been a good follower, or you have to still be a good follower, because all of us are led by somebody else. Ultimately, at the head, at the very, very top, we are all led by God and by Jesus Christ. But even here on earth, we all follow somebody's example. So yes, we are all leaders. We all want to be leaders, right? But in order to be a good leader, you have to have been a good follower. You have to be a good follower. And we need to follow the right people. And this is why this is so important, right? So following a good example. So let's check out these verses. 2 Timothy verse 3, chapter 10, starting from chapter 10. It says, but you have carefully, so this is Paul talking to Timothy. He says, but you have carefully followed my doctrine, or the Christianity, basically the examples that he was teaching him about being a Christian. You have followed my doctrine, my manner of life, my purpose. What was Paul's purpose? To bring Christianity to everybody, and especially to the Gentiles, which is you and me, guys, anybody that's not a Jew. My purpose, my faith, his faith in Jesus Christ, his long suffering, guys. Paul had suffered a bunch. His love, his perseverance, his persecutions. What is a persecution? We're going to talk about it here. My afflictions, which have happened to me at Antioch, at Iconium, at Lystra, what persecutions I endured, and out of them all the Lord delivered me. All right, so Paul had gone through a bunch of stuff, guys. He had been put in prison, and they had put chains on him. He had been, excuse me, he had been stoned. Guys, imagine. I mean, I think all of us as little kids at some point in time, or even as older kids, we've been hit either by a baseball or we've been hit by a rock. If you can imagine, guys, being thrown rocks by a bunch of different people until you died. That is what they used to do in the old days. That's how they used to kill people. That was one of the ways that they used to kill people. And Paul had this done to him. Um, he had been whipped. And again, as an example, I'm sure all of us, either with a stick, we've been whipped, or by a belt, we've been whipped. Imagine these whips that they used to put stuff on the end of them so that when they hit you, they would rip skin off when they got pulled off. These are the whips that Paul used to get whipped with. And the law at that time was getting whipped um, less than 40 times. So basically, they used to go right up into it 39 times. Imagine getting whipped 39 times, and the scars, the things that used to leave. He did that for Jesus Christ, right? He did that for Jesus Christ. And thank God we don't necessarily go through that stuff right now. But Paul's giving Timothy, and he's reminding Timothy that we will go through things. So in verse 12, he says, yes, and all who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. And we read this, we might ask, what the heck would I want to live for Jesus Christ for if this is what I'm in for? If Paul right here is telling me that anybody who wants to live for Jesus Christ is going to suffer persecution, is going to suffer hard times, that might mean somebody making fun of you. That might mean somebody putting you in prison. That might mean a bunch of different things. But we are promised that we are going to go through tough things. Why the heck would we want to live a life that we know we're going to suffer hard times in? I'm going to tell you guys right now. If you don't live for Jesus Christ, you're still going to go through hard stuff, because this world is not an easy world. This world is a fallen world. It is a sinful world where evil things happen because of the sins. So even if you don't live for Jesus Christ, you're going to go through hard things. We are going to go through hard things regardless. But if we live for Jesus Christ, we know that we're going to get the best of the best, right? Even in the hard times, Paul went through those hard times and he used to sing. All of these people that went through these hard times, they would go to their very deaths saying, I can't wait to go through this, because I know at the end of it, I'm going to see Jesus Christ. And even while I'm here, I'm going to enjoy myself, even in the midst of those hard times, right? And what rings true for me, guys, is that nothing that is worth it is easy. Remember that. Nothing that is worth it is easy. And there is nothing more worth it in this world than living for Jesus Christ, right? So while Paul says that we're going to go through hard stuff, anybody that decides to live for Jesus Christ is going to go through hard stuff. And yes, that is very true. Nobody that comes to Christianity should ever think that all their problems are going to be solved, that it's going to be easy. But the important thing is that we won't be abandoned. If we don't live for Jesus, we walk through this world without the ultimate help. But if we live for him, he will always be there for us, guys. Verse 13 says, but evil men and impostors will grow worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. All right. And this is when we get to the title of this lesson. So, guys, there's bad examples everywhere. There's bad examples everywhere. I'll keep on reading here. But you must continue in the things which you have learned and have been assured of, knowing from whom you have learned them. Right? So, guys, the reality is that a lot of the times it's definitely easier. It's definitely easier to follow a bad example. We have bad examples all around us. They are everywhere, guys. You don't have to look. It is not hard to look for a bad example. We find them all over the place, right? And a lot of the times, it can be a lot more exciting to follow a bad example, right? A bad, those friends, it can seem really exciting, or those older cousins, it's really exciting, or even bad parents. It can be exciting to follow their bad examples. Why? Because the enemy, because the devil, right? And all of the things that we can't see, the demons, we can't see them. But guys, they whisper and they present things. It says that the devil, he almost, you guys can kind of think about it like Halloween. He dresses himself up in a very appealing, in something that is very exciting. You can think about something that looks delicious or something that appears to be super, super nice. He dresses himself up in that, and he tricks us into desiring those things, right? And just like that, those bad examples that are everywhere, it can be really exciting to follow those guys. Let me see here. So again, in verse 14, it says, "But you must continue in the things which you have learned and have been assured of, knowing from whom you have learned." Right, guys? So thankfully, you guys know a lot of good examples. And the important thing is to pick a good example. Guys, go after those good examples. Pick somebody who you really know is a good example and ask them. Ask them all of the questions that you have. Ask them all of the things that you might want to know about. Ask them about the things that you want to learn about. It's really important. There's a saying, I'm sure you guys have heard it. It says, learn from your mistakes. See, I like to say, learn from other people's mistakes. I'll tell you guys right now, I've made a bunch of different mistakes. I've worked really hard to correct those mistakes, but I also learned a lot from other people's mistakes, and try not to make those same mistakes. Guys, so ask me. Come up to me and ask me about those mistakes. Before you guys, if you guys are questioning something, say, "Hey, how do I think Louis would act in this situation?" Right? Or just come up and ask me, "Hey, I'm thinking about this." If you're questioning something, if you're saying, "Should I do it? Should I not do it?" Chances are you should not do it, guys. All right. So just a thought. All right, verse 15. 15, it says, "And from childhood you have known the holy scriptures, which you are able to make wise, um, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith, which is in Jesus Christ." So guys, one thing that is for sure is that this life is going to end, right? This life is going to end. But the next one that comes, guys, is going to be forever. And one of the things that I like to think about is, what is one of the things that I like to do? Guys, so think about, what's one of the things that you really like to do, right? Because we can be assured that this life is going to end and we're going to go to the next life, right? You know, a lot of people think that, oh man, this Christian thing is just kind of boring and I kind of want to do what's really exciting. And guys, I tell you, there's nothing more exciting than this, especially when you think about the next life, because this one's going to end. The next one is not going to end, right? And I like to think about what's something that I really, really like to do, because People say when we go to the next life, well, all we're gonna do is worship and worship and worship, or it's gonna be something that's not all that exciting. But our God is a God who delights, who has fun in knowing that we have fun in the things that He has given us to do. And when you think about the fun things that you like to do, I have a feeling that we're going to be able to do those endlessly in heaven, which is why it's really important here while we're here to follow good examples so that we can get to the next life and receive all of the good things that God has for us, because we're going to be able to do the things that we like to do endlessly without any end in heaven. Here they always end, those good things that we like to do, but there we're going to be able to do those things without any end. So guys, while we're here on earth, pick good examples and follow those good examples. Follow Jesus Christ's examples, follow Paul's example. Guys, come up to me and ask me what are the good things to do, what are the wrong things that I should be staying away from. So verse 16, it says, all scripture is given by inspiration of God. So all of the words of God are given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, and for instruction in righteousness. So the good example is here in the Bible, is basically what that is saying. And what is the purpose? Verse 17, that the man of God may be complete, thoroughly equipped for every good work. So guys, what's the big lesson out of all this? Guys, there's so many bad examples all around us. There's bad examples all over the place, and it's easy to follow them. Sometimes it's like I told you guys, it's more exciting and it's easier to follow those bad examples. Guys, but choose, make it a point. Decide in your life, I am going to follow a good example. I'm going to pick a good example. I'm going to go and ask them things before I decide to make a choice, something that I'm questioning. Should I do this? Should I not do it? Go and talk to that person, guys. I'm going to put him on the spot. One of my guys who we all received a text message from, who got sick, is Henry, guys. So please pray for him. But Henry is really good at this. Henry has chosen us as a good example, and before he decides to do something, he calls us, or he says, hey, I have this going on. Guys, be like that. Be like that, because it'll avoid you getting into bad situations. All right. And learn, before you learn from your mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes. Always be observing. What are the good things? What are the bad things? And how can I avoid them? All right. So following a good example, guys, it leads us to God, and it's going to lead us to that next life, which we'll always be able to have for doing the things that we enjoy, because God says that He made all things for our enjoyment. Think about that. How awesome is that? That God that people say is boring, that God that people say is a bad God, it says that He made all things so that we could enjoy them, right? So that's pretty awesome, guys. So that's definitely motivation to follow good examples. All right, guys, I love you guys. Let's do a quick prayer. And like I said, join me in praying for Henry and in praying for all of our health, and praying for all of us to continue following good examples. Follow more than anything else the example of Jesus Christ. Dear Lord, I give you thanks. Thank you for being so amazing and so wonderful to us. Dear Lord, help us do your will each and every day. Help us follow those good examples. Help us live the way you taught, the way you teach us to live, by following those examples that you've given us here on earth. I pray these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. I love you guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.